In any speedrun, the most important part is movement, getting from point A to point B as efficiently as possible. But if I had to pick like an aspect of what speedrun is, it's boss efficiency. Starting off with the first boss, Abram. There are multiple ways of actually getting a pretty consistent one cycle on Abram. The first one is just mash away with the knife. And then a little bit more complicated, but it also deals a bit more damage, is using a bow strategy. So what you want when using the bow strategy is that you shoot at least 2 or more times and those have to hit. The reason for why you want 2 is because then you are slightly ahead of DPS compared to just using a regular knife attack. Now moving on to the second boss fight. So you start out the fight with attacking 3 times, go straight forward 2 times and then up once. Then she's gonna be doing a flip, which then will throw daggers. That one you can just cast magic and jump over the first one. Then she will go for a rope. This one you can just jump over, so that you can just jump over it and still continue doing your damage. Then she will do a slash at you, which you can just backdash into magic. She will then go into another flip, which you can use magic for, and then you can stab, and it should be done from that point. The third boss of the run, it is the Jinn and Efrit boss fight. So what you do is that you have the zebra that you pick up in stage 2, and you go for blue first. In the opening, you can do a rising jump attack, which means that you will able to get 2 attacks in 1 jump, which then will also be able to lead into just mashing. Then you also want to make the blue Jinn face the wall, or so that all of his moves are cancelled out. And then you do the same with red, except that you may do a small jump so that you don't jump into him, float, and just smash attack. And that is how you should be getting a consistent boss fight. Shooting Star. Shooting Star is a very simple boss fight. So pretty much what you only need to learn is that he's completely immune to fire. So you can only use blue form against him. But then the only thing that you need to do is jump, float, and then mash attack button, and then eventually you need to be worried about falling rocks. That's it. It's a fairly simple and straightforward boss fight. Moving on to the first stage 3 boss fight, we have Arla, the Grey Witch. She'll make a second appearance in this stage as well, but the fight is pretty simple. It's just mash away and jump over the first attack. We also do a little small thing, trying to position ourselves so that then her next phase is to the left of us, because then we'll be able to land behind them and then backdash attack, because when she's walking up, she guards attacks from the front of her, but she doesn't guard behind her. Other than that, it's fairly simple. There's also a second way to do floss, and it is to get Rock Blast in stage 2 after the Jinn fight, and Rocks goes through guard. So if you're a newer player, then that might actually be the option for you, but that's here or there. Second boss fight in stage 3. Once again, we're going to be fighting Carla, but her second phase is going to be different, and her second attack is also different. So you pretty much do the same thing as you did in phase 1 in the first fight, in the first boss fight. You jump over her first attack, and then after that you just kind of spam. Demon God is different because she's weak to both blue form and wisp, and you kind of want to drag her to the wall, but the boss fight is mainly just mash in, try to avoid getting hit by dogs and blades. There's nothing really too spectacular about it. First boss fight of stage 4. This boss fight used to be a lot more different when the game started out, but due to someone discovering that the boss in this fight has multiple hitboxes on his ass, he actually just became that you use blue form, float up, pogo off him so that you don't have to menu to get a 2-handed weapon, so you can just spam away on his ass and get a quick kill because of that. Stage 4's last boss is going to be a rematch versus Beatrice, and her first move is to actually run up and then do a flip, which you pretty much do the same thing as you did in stage 1. And then she also does the rope attack as well. But now the slash she does goes forward a bit, which means that you need to be a longer distance with your backdash. Which then, she will then do a fire flip, because she has more health. And we don't see that in phase in stage 1. She will then do another slash, and then she will start levitating, where you can just float and mash attack against her, because that is her desperation attack. So you just mash away when she starts levitating. Okay, so coming up to the optional boss of stage 5. This is legitimately one of the only bosses that can actually be skipped. So the first thing he does is that he starts walking backwards, and then he's gonna be doing a dash forward slash. Well, then after this attack, he will start walking forward. He then activates his sword, I guess. And he will eventually slam it down in the floor, which means that the roof falls and magic starts to burn out of his sword, I guess. At this part, you can just mash Windstorm, so it's fairly simple, but he also has other attacks. For example, after he has thrust his sword down, he's gonna go for a command grab, which you can slide through. After the command grab, you'll start to throw knives at the roof, which will track you. After doing that for a while, he will then eventually start with doing a charge attack, which is easier to see because he glows purple while doing it. And then he will go to throw another set of daggers, which doesn't track and bounces off the wall if it hits a metal surface. The boss is simple, but once again, it's an optional boss fight. Ah yes, now we're gonna be talking about my favorite boss fight in the game, that being Astrum. So the boss fight starts out with him teleporting to a set location, which then you can just mash in order to avoid the first set of attacks that he does and to slide through him and slide again. That usually sets up for a perfect distance against what is going to be the main gimmick to kill Astrum, or in the first form. And then he will teleport eventually after the free attacks that he does into doing a upward slash that also sends up blue magic that you can absorb. You can also jump the sword by doing a short hop, and then he will eventually back up into a ball and chain attack, which just jump over him. He's not gonna turn around when he's doing it. And then he will eventually start a charge, but the reason for why we won her, because he will get stuck at the wall, so you can just mash away when he's trying to complete his shard. And then we also have Imperfect Astrum form, which it's a lot more difficult to one cycle. You can one cycle it. I know people that actually knows how to do it. I need to practice that. I'm fully aware of that. But depending on the distance, he will either start with a command grab, or he will start doing swipes at you. So for example, in this clip, he started with doing a command grab against me because I was very close to him. And then we also have the swipes, which is pretty much if you're outside of your own attack range, he will start doing swipes, which the swipes you can once again slide through like you did in the first phase in his first attacks. You just slide through him. Then he will start vomiting, which leaves a fire trail, which you can use to get magic back and use Windstorm against, or Will-O-Wisp if you want to, because he's actually weak to Wisp. After he has vomited, he goes into this charge up animation where lightning comes down. There will always come down one behind you, one in front of you, and then one right on top of you. After the one right on top of you is done, he's gonna fire the thing that he's been charging up for. He will then try to go for a command grab. This one is always guaranteed to happen, unlike the first one where it's distance dependent. And then he will go into an immune screen, or you just have to wait out. You just need to wait him out until he reforms himself in order to attack him. He will then do a jump and vomit, which leaves fire. And depending on how much damage you had dealt, he will start his desperation attack immediately after this one. And the trick to beat his desperation attack is just to crouch. That is pretty much the only thing that you need to know. Just crouch, and then bam. Okay, so I'm not going to be covering the boss rush in this video. The only thing I really have to add to the boss rush is that you use the Crimson Mallet instead of Zebra. On to the memory fight and the final boss fight. So, the boss fight starts out with Parn just running away from you. Just shoot him. You can slide through him, and then you can just continue shooting your bow against him. The bow uses dark magic, and memory is really weak to dark and immune to Wisp. So, you pretty much deal like 300 points of damage. Depending on how good you are, you can kill them when Woodshock appears. For me, I was a bit slower because the cleric showed up, but I killed him rather quickly. And now comes the main reason for why this fight. It is the Nylon Fight. What you first do is that he's gonna be doing a double laser attack. So he's gonna take out these two and shoot lasers from the ground. So you're just gonna start floating. So you just jump up, start floating, attack him while he's floating. And when they get closer, jump again, and then just do downwards attack to float above the fire so that you don't get hit in the laser. So when he goes into this phase, you're supposed to just go drop because you can't actually stay in the eye because these things are in the way, like these eyeballs. The reason also, and then also another reason for why you want to just drop immediately is start gaining magic. So you could use windstorm, and so we kind of just stay in the magic. Then you switch. Now you are going to be doing where you use blue form to levitate so close as possible to the eye, and then jump over the red magic that appears in the face. After the phase where the magic spins around the final boss, you enter in where he returns into the neutral state of where the first part was, and he starts to shoot balls of energy, which would then, it will explode into a pillar. So just avoid them and don't try to take damage. After that, you will have to deal with shades because you can't damage him unless you completely kill all shades. After killing all the shades, you go into what we call the popcorn phase, where he decides to shoot up multiple fireballs through these things that he has on the side. And then we also go into another phase where he just shoots balls that will eventually turn into giant pillars of laser. And then he goes into his desperation attack, which by then you should have him dead. So that covers every single boss besides the boss rush. I even covered Bell, which is an optional boss fight. Okay, so this is post-editing me. As it turns out, I missed out on some details that is very effectful. So, for example, in my Imperfect Astrum part, I talked about that his command grab is distance related. I was wrong. It is dependent on his distance to the wall. So the closer he is to the wall, then he goes for a command grab. So that's on me. A little detail that I also forgot to add is that Beld is weak to rock. And then we have a really weird mechanic, which is flaws in the boss rush segment. In that part, you can use the dark bow in wind form to damage him even when he's supposed to be guarding, because apparently guard only protects him against free elemental, which is wind, fire, and water. I don't know why it works like that, but it does. I would like to shout out Dark for giving me the in-game models used in this video. So his link will be in the description. I'm also going to be putting in some links to runs that have better boss fights, so you can see what the optimized boss fights are supposed to be. But yeah, so if you found anything informational about this or interesting, then I would appreciate subscribing.